The story opens with a happy family living a peaceful life, completely unaware that within the next few minutes, they would face something so horrifying that it's hard to even imagine. While Jason and his wife Beth were chatting inside the house, they suddenly heard terrified screams and panicked shouting coming from outside. As soon as they stepped out, they found the entire neighborhood in complete chaos. People were rushing out of their homes, grabbing whatever they could, and fleeing as if a massive disaster was about to strike. Jason and Beth noticed that even their neighbors were frantically packing up and abandoning their house. Confused, Jason stopped one of them and asked, "What's going on? Why is everyone leaving?" But they were in such a hurry that they completely ignored him. At that moment, Jason noticed the neighbor's young son stuffing his belongings into a bag. He asked the boy, "Where are you all going?" The child replied, "My dad has a friend who works for the government. He told us that a deadly virus has spread across the city, a virus that turns ordinary people into monsters." Before the boy could explain any further, his mother rushed over, grabbed him by the arm, and pulled him away. Jason quickly asked her what kind of virus the boy was talking about. Without stopping, she replied, "There's no time to explain. Take your wife and your daughter, and get as far away from this city as you possibly can." Hearing those words sent Jason and Beth into a panic. Without wasting another second, Jason loaded his family into the car and sped toward the city limits. But along the way, something strange happened. The same neighbors who had been desperately fleeing were now turning around and driving back toward the city. That only made the situation even more confusing. A little farther ahead, traffic came to a complete standstill. Jason and his family stepped out of the car and discovered that the only road leading out of the city had been completely sealed off by the police. Military helicopters were circling overhead, keeping watch from every direction. Officials began announcing that a dangerous virus had infected the city and that everyone should immediately return to their homes. That didn't make any sense to Jason. If the city had truly been infected, why were they forcing people back inside instead of evacuating them? Before anyone could figure out what was happening, a huge boulder suddenly came crashing down from the nearby mountain and smashed into their car. Everyone froze in fear. The mountain itself began to tremble, and moments later, two military fighter jets emerged from behind it, racing straight toward the city. Within seconds, those jets started dropping bombs across the entire city. Massive explosions ripped through every street, reducing buildings to rubble and turning the city into a sea of fire and ash. Beth immediately realized something terrifying. If they had obeyed the police and gone back home, they would have been killed along with everyone else. But the nightmare wasn't over. The fighter jets then turned toward the people trapped on the highway. Panic spread instantly as everyone realized the horrifying truth. The government wasn't trying to save them. It was trying to eliminate every single person. People scattered in every direction, desperately running for their lives. Jason and Beth quickly realized that no matter where they ran, those fighter jets would eventually find them. Just then, Beth looked toward the mountainside behind them and spotted an old school building. She believed it might be their only chance to survive. Jason grabbed Beth and their daughter Joey, and the three of them sprinted up the mountain toward the school. Behind them, the fighter jets began bombing the bridge where hundreds of people were trapped. Explosions echoed everywhere as they ran with everything they had. Somehow they managed to reach the school, and by incredible luck, they discovered a hidden underground bunker. Only seconds before another massive explosion hit, they rushed inside and slammed the heavy bunker door shut. The moment the door locked, a deafening blast shook the ground above them. Fortunately, they were safely underground, and their lives had been spared. But one question continued to haunt them. What kind of virus was so terrifying that the government decided to wipe out an entire city? None of it made any sense. The only thing they knew for certain was that if they wanted to stay alive, they had no choice but to remain hidden inside the bunker. A new problem soon became obvious. How long could they possibly survive down there? And once their supplies ran out, where would they find food? Luckily, the bunker contained a large stockpile of canned food. Even though most of it had already expired, it was enough to keep 3 people alive for quite some time. Beth, however, couldn't stop worrying. Her biggest concern wasn't herself, it was Joey. She kept wondering what would happen if her daughter got sick. To make matters worse, Beth had badly injured her hand while shutting the bunker door, leaving a deep wound that refused to heal. Both she and Jason secretly feared that the mysterious virus might have already infected them as well, but this wasn't the time to panic. Their first priority was making sure nobody could get inside. Jason wrapped a heavy iron chain around the bunker door and secured it tightly. From that moment on, they accepted the painful reality that this underground shelter was now their home. Life beneath the surface was far from easy. Every day was exactly the same. The same canned meals, mud-filled water that barely seemed drinkable, and endless hours spent playing cards just to pass the time. Their connection to the outside world had completely disappeared. After spending countless days trapped inside, the bunker slowly began to feel like a prison. But what choice did they have? Going outside almost certainly meant death. This harsh existence made Jason's family feel as though they were living through the end of the world itself. One day, little Joey asked her father, "Dad, how much longer do we have to stay here?" Jason didn't have an answer. Instead, he gently smiled and said, "As soon as the virus is gone, we'll go outside." To comfort her, he covered her eyes with his hands and encouraged her to imagine the beautiful world waiting for them beyond the bunker walls. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Without even realizing it, they had spent more than 300 days hiding underground, waiting for a day that never seemed to come. Using a homemade periscope built by her mother, Joey peeked outside. All she could see was destruction in every direction. The landscape looked completely burned, as if the entire world had been reduced to ashes. There wasn't a single sign of another human being anywhere. Seeing that devastated wasteland, Joey quietly asked if they might be the last people left alive. Beth comforted her by saying, "Don't think like that. Maybe your friends are hiding somewhere too, just like we are." That night, it was time for dinner. Their food supplies had become dangerously low, so the family had been surviving on tiny portions. But because Joey insisted she was still hungry, they finally gave her one whole can to eat. When she opened it, her smile disappeared. The can was completely empty. A tiny hole had been chewed through the back of it. Beth immediately inspected the rest of their supplies and made a shocking discovery. 12 more cans had been emptied the exact same way. That was nearly 2 weeks worth of food gone. Looking toward the ventilation grate, Beth guessed that a rat must have found its way into the bunker. "If it's a rat," she said, "we have to kill it before it destroys everything we've got." Seeing Joey's disappointed face, Jason tried to cheer her up. "Don't worry about something this small," he said. "Even if all the food runs out, I'll go back to the surface and bring more supplies." The following day, while Joey was playing with building blocks beside her mother, they suddenly heard a faint noise behind them. Joey turned around just in time to spot the same rat sneaking in to steal another can. Before it could escape, she immediately called for her parents. Today, they were determined to kill it. Jason grabbed a knife and charged toward the tiny creature, ready to finish it once and for all. But the rat was unbelievably fast. It dodged every attack, darted across the room, and knocked over the oil lantern sitting on the table. Just as it was about to disappear back into its hole, Beth lunged forward and finally crushed it. The family celebrated for only a moment, because on the other side of the room, the fallen lantern had already started a fire. Jason rushed over to pick it up, but the lantern had become so hot that it burned his hand. Then the glass suddenly shattered, spreading flames across the entire table. Beth ripped down a curtain and tried to smother the fire, while Jason filled half a bucket with water and threw it over the flames. After a desperate struggle, they finally managed to put the fire out. But the danger wasn't over. In fact, it had just become much worse. Although the flames were gone, thick smoke had filled the entire bunker and was slowly escaping through the ventilation shaft toward the surface. The moment they realized that, all three of them were terrified. That smoke could reveal their hiding place. They sat in complete silence, barely daring to breathe. Jason tried to reassure everyone. "Maybe the darkness of the night will hide the smoke," he said. "Hopefully nobody will notice." Even so, none of them slept. They spent the entire night waiting in fear. The next morning, Jason cautiously looked outside through the periscope just to make sure everything was safe. The moment he looked, his heart nearly stopped. A massive cloud of smoke was still hanging over the area. Their anxiety instantly returned. Now they were convinced that someone could easily discover where they were hiding. Beth then pointed out another frightening possibility. "If the smoke reached the surface," she said, "then ash must have settled around the bunker too. Anyone investigating it could trace it right back here." There was only one solution. They had to go outside and clean up the ashes before anyone found them. After discussing the risk, Jason and Beth decided to leave the bunker together. Before stepping out, Jason knelt beside Joey and looked her in the eyes. "Promise me one thing," he said. "No matter what you hear outside, even if someone calls your name, you are not to open this door or come outside. Do you understand?" After making his daughter promise, Jason slowly removed the heavy chain from the bunker door. He and Beth stood completely still, listening carefully for any sound outside. Once they were certain everything was quiet, they pushed the door open together and stepped out into the open. Now Joey was alone inside the bunker. She patiently waited for her parents to return, but as the minutes dragged on and they still hadn't come back, she climbed onto a stool and looked outside through the homemade periscope. Soon she spotted her parents trying to cover the bunker entrance so it wouldn't be noticed from above. But then, Joey saw something that made her blood run cold. Deep in the forest, a dark figure was racing straight toward them. She screamed as loudly as she could, telling her father to look behind him, but the distance was too great. Neither Jason nor Beth could hear her. Terrified, Joey forgot the promise she had made. She climbed the ladder, pushed open the bunker hatch, and rushed outside. The moment she stepped into the open, she realized her parents weren't where she'd seen them anymore. Panicking, she began shouting for them at the top of her lungs. Suddenly, someone grabbed her from behind and covered her mouth. It was Beth. A few seconds later, a herd of frightened deer came charging past at full speed. The family had narrowly escaped being trampled, but Beth became even more uneasy. Animals didn't flee like that without a reason. Something dangerous had terrified them. Realizing they were no longer safe, all three immediately ran back toward the bunker. Jason slammed the hatch shut, reinforced it with thick wooden planks, wrapped the iron chain tightly around it once again, and warned everyone to stay absolutely silent. Moments later, they heard slow footsteps directly above them. It sounded as if something had stopped right over the bunker entrance. For several long minutes, whatever it was kept pacing back and forth above their heads. Trying not to make the slightest noise, Jason, Beth, and Joey quietly moved deeper into the bunker. So far, it seemed that whatever was outside still hadn't realized anyone was hiding below. Overcome with fear, Joey began crying. Beth immediately hugged her and whispered, "If they hear you, we're all dead." The three of them slowly moved farther away from the entrance. Their plan was simple. Even if someone managed to force the bunker door open, they wouldn't immediately be seen from below. But just then, the string attached to the doll Joey was carrying became tangled around a loose screw in the wall. The screw slowly began pulling free. Jason and Beth froze. Because that string was connected to the doll's sound mechanism, before either of them could stop it, the screw suddenly popped out. Instantly, the doll began playing its cheerful voice. Without hesitation, Jason ripped the doll apart and smashed the speaker inside. But it was already too late. Whatever had been wandering above them had heard the noise. A violent crash echoed from overhead. Then came the sound of heavy footsteps stopping directly above the bunker door. It had finally found them. The creature began forcing the hatch open with tremendous strength. Even though the entrance was secured with heavy iron chains, every slam shook the entire bunker. It was obvious now. Whatever was outside knew someone was hiding below. The chains held for only a few moments before they started snapping apart one by one under the creature's incredible strength. Jason immediately realized the door wouldn't survive much longer. Without wasting another second, he rushed toward the water pump and ripped out a thick metal pipe. Meanwhile, Beth climbed onto the ladder and threw all of her body weight against the hatch, desperately pulling on the remaining chain in an attempt to keep it closed. Even then, the heavy iron lid slowly began lifting open. At that exact moment, a dark figure appeared above the opening. Its glowing eyes shined like bright light bulbs in the darkness, as if death itself had come looking down at them. Jason didn't hesitate. He swung the metal pipe with all his strength. The blow knocked the creature backward. Jason quickly jammed the pipe across the hatch, forcing it shut once again, and the creature retreated into the darkness. But Jason couldn't stop shaking. He had never imagined that the world outside wasn't occupied only by ruthless soldiers. There were monsters roaming it as well. The entire family sat silently near the ladder, completely devastated. Their hiding place had been exposed. It was only a matter of time before another attack came, and they all knew one terrifying truth. The next time, it wouldn't come alone. A few moments later, a nearby cabinet suddenly began trembling. Jason and Beth exchanged frightened looks. It had returned, and this time, it had brought others with it. Heavy footsteps echoed across the ground above them. Not one, not two, but what sounded like hundreds, maybe thousands, of creatures running directly over their heads. Soon they all gathered around the bunker entrance. Below, Jason, Beth, and Joey sat frozen in terror. Then, the attack began. This assault was far stronger than the first. With one enormous impact, the reinforced iron hatch finally gave way and crashed open. Dozens of glowing eyes instantly appeared above the opening. The family backed away in horror as the creature slowly climbed down into the bunker. Beth grabbed the burning oil lamp and threw it toward the curtain between them, setting it ablaze. Then she and Jason shoved a heavy cabinet across the passage to block the monster's path. Without looking back, the three of them ran deeper into the bunker, but they all knew that barricade would only delay them for a few moments. There was no real escape left. Just then, Joey noticed a narrow ventilation shaft leading toward the surface. Jason smashed it open with every bit of strength he had left and forced Beth and Joey through first. When it was finally his turn to climb out, he became stuck. The opening was too narrow. Meanwhile, the creatures were closing in behind him. Jason looked around desperately but couldn't find another way. There was only one option left. He deliberately dislocated his own shoulder. The pain was unbearable. He screamed in agony, but after forcing himself to stay conscious, he finally squeezed into the ventilation shaft. Outside, Beth grabbed both of his arms and pulled with everything she had. Jason was only inches away from freedom when suddenly, a massive creature grabbed his leg from below. Jason immediately understood. There was no escaping now. Looking into Beth's eyes one last time, he quietly said, "No matter what happens, protect Joey." The very next second, the creature dragged him back into the bunker, but instead of begging for mercy, Jason faced the monsters head on. "Come on," he shouted. "Let's see what you've got." Standing outside with Joey, Beth could hear Jason's screams echoing from deep inside the bunker. She realized exactly what he was doing. He was sacrificing himself to buy them time. Fighting back tears, Beth grabbed Joey's hand and ran as far away as she possibly could, narrowly avoiding the creatures chasing them. After running for quite a while, they suddenly noticed something strange. The highway that once led out of the city no longer existed. A gigantic wall had been built across it. There was no way out anymore. The entire city had been sealed off. Just then, the sound of helicopter blades echoed overhead. Beth turned around. An army helicopter was flying directly toward them. Within seconds, it hovered overhead and blasted them with an intense spotlight. The two were about to run when a huge net suddenly dropped from the helicopter. They were trapped. Beth struggled with everything she had, trying to free herself and Joey, but the net tightened around them. Looking through its mesh, Beth saw several dark figures with glowing green eyes approaching, and that's when the biggest truth of the entire story was finally revealed. The armed figures with glowing yellow eyes, the ones everyone believed were terrifying monsters, weren't aliens, and they weren't mutated creatures either. They were ordinary military soldiers. Their glowing eyes came from night vision goggles, while the frightening appearance was caused by their gas masks. The monsters they had feared all this time were actually soldiers. But that raises an even bigger question. Why was the military so determined to hunt hunt down and kill innocent survivors? The answer lies in the final part of the story. Now both Beth and Joey were completely under military control. One of the soldiers pulled out a large injector and took blood samples from both of them. After testing their blood, the results confirmed something horrifying. Both Beth and Joey were infected with the deadly virus. That meant they were now considered a threat to humanity, and according to military protocol, they had to be executed. When the outbreak first began, countless residents of this small town had already been infected. The virus spread through the air and passed from one person to another incredibly fast. The worst part was that infected people didn't even realize they were carrying it. The government had failed to create any antidote, so instead of curing the infected, they decided to eliminate them. Crying uncontrollably, Beth begged, "Please, spare my daughter." But when she realized the soldiers were about to kill Joey as well, something inside her snapped. Dark veins began spreading across her face. Before she could attack, blood suddenly sprayed across the air from one soldier's neck. Jason had returned. Against all odds, he wasn't dead. Inside the bunker, Jason hadn't been killed by the infected. Instead, he had completely lost control of the virus within himself. Consumed by uncontrollable rage, he slaughtered every soldier inside. His face was now covered with dark markings. His eyes glowed with fury. His strength had increased several times over. It was obvious this was no longer the same Jason. He lunged at the remaining soldiers one after another, tearing through them with overwhelming power, but even he couldn't withstand a hail of bullets forever. Moments later, he was riddled with gunfire and collapsed to the ground. By the time the soldiers turned back toward Beth and Joey, the two had already escaped from the net. The soldiers spread out, searching everywhere. What they didn't know was that Beth had transformed as well. She hid Joey inside an abandoned car before charging at the soldiers herself. She managed to kill several of them before being struck by bullets and collapsing onto the roof of the vehicle. Hidden in the darkness, Joey witnessed everything. Watching both of her parents fall pushed her over the edge. Consumed by anger, she transformed too. With a single leap, she knocked down a soldier, ripped off his protective mask, and was just about to kill him when Beth stopped her at the last possible moment. She refused to let her daughter become a monster. Beth calmed Joey down. Slowly, the green veins faded from the girl's body. She transformed back into a normal human. The soldier, however, wasn't so lucky. His protective mask had been broken. Within moments, he began becoming infected himself. Meanwhile, Jason's condition had become critical. With his remaining strength, he gently placed 2 fingers across Joey's eyes, just as he had done when asking her to imagine the beautiful world outside. Then, Jason closed his eyes forever. At that very moment, another military helicopter arrived. Beth grabbed Joey and ran once again. After weaving through piles of abandoned scrap, they entered a dark underground tunnel. Suddenly, a beam of light shined directly into their faces. Standing there was the same little boy from the neighboring family, whom we had seen at the very beginning of the story. Without saying a word, Beth and Joey followed him. He led them deep into a cave-like tunnel where his parents, and many other survivors, had been hiding all this time. Every one of them was infected with the virus. To stay alive, they had been forced to live in darkness like rats beneath the ruined city. The virus was certainly dangerous, but it wasn't actually fatal. Its effects became uncontrollable only when an infected person was consumed by fear or lost control of their anger. Over time, these survivors had learned how to control both their emotions and the virus itself. To them, the soldiers were the monsters, but in reality, the ones everyone feared as monsters were the infected humans themselves. And with that shocking revelation, the story comes to an end.